Torsten, over to you, just to tell the audience a little bit about your background and where you're coming from in this topic of SAP and DevOps.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so hello everyone from my side as well. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Torsten Bergander. I'm part of Accenture's SAP Business Group, which is, well, as the name says, mainly catering towards SAP-related business exercises. And in particular there, I'm leading the DevOps for SAP domain, where I'm responsible to help some, even if not most of our large clients, to understand how they can actually become very agile, and also how they can leverage and implement DevOps related concepts and toolings to underpin digital transformations on their journey to business agility in the SAP heavy ecosystems that some of our, as I said, largest clients are facing. I've been doing SAP for over 20 years as well, but in particular for the last 1.5 decades, I'm doing that in the context of Accenture. My background is a lot about testing, test automation, transformational deliveries, most often from the ACC, but also in the S4 domain, where I've worked with a number of clients to implement, let's say, complex transformations in different parts of the world. And today I'm hailing out of Zurich, and the weather is excellent today, so I have perfect lighting, and I'm delighted to take you through some of, let's say, the more high-level aspects that you need to consider when doing DevOps for SAP. With that, I would like to hand over to David, who is basically joining me today in providing you some hopefully exciting insights into how we can do that together. David.
Great, thanks, Torsten. Likewise, I'm delighted to be here to kind of talk this topic jointly with Accenture. I'm the CTO here at Basis Technologies, and I've been with Basis for just under 2 years now. Prior to that, I spent the majority of my career with Procter & Gamble, and I actually came across Basis initially as a customer. So I have spent most of my career in the SAP domain from many different angles, from original implementations back in the late 90s of early versions of R3, or even support of mainframe-based R2, all the way through the lifespan of SAP, through upgrades, through support, transformations, etc., etc. So obviously great to be here. Looking forward to share some more of our ideas and offerings. And over to you. Back to you, Pete.
Okay, thanks, David. Well, I'm going to just immediately hand over the baton again today and say that's enough of the intros. Let's get going. Torsten, over to you to start us off with this conversation about the bigger picture and how Accenture are working with their clients around these topics of agility and DevOps.
All right. So thanks, Pete, again. As you said, I'm trying to approach this a bit from, let's say, the outside in, from, let's say, the higher level, and then let's work towards some of hopefully important pieces that we need to get right when we want to get started. So at least if I'm looking around to the clients that I've worked with, but also talking to some of our clients, when we look at business agility being, let's say, ultimate goal that we want to reach, most often, or more often than not nowadays, this is also combined with the so-called digital transformation, which means that in one part, we're trying to understand how can we be more agile in, let's say, catering to the needs of our clients, or clients. And at the other end of the story is the question of how can we actually build a fundament, or the basis in a digital way to support all those processes that are actually then used to make our customers happy. So when we combine those two things, there is an additional, let's say, dimension that comes in, which the expectation of delivering results in such a transformation is no longer something that can be in the range of 2, 3, 4 years. So the expectation, the hunger for results, the hunger for actually being agile is related to a much shorter time frame nowadays. Yeah, so fast delivery of agility is something that our clients are looking for, and here we're talking about months, yeah, maximum up to 12 months, where we want to have the first pieces of the puzzle in place and productive. So that means, if we go one slide further, Pete, yeah, we need to understand how we can do this, yeah. And nowadays, we are going farther and farther away from these waterfall-like deliveries that have been, let's say, the standard when we're talking about packaged software, or in particular SAP. So the answer seems to be, with most of our clients, and I'm sure with some of you as well, that we want to employ some kind of an agile approach here. So the first question that I think you need to ask yourself is, how agile are we actually? How good are we in breaking down large monolithic structures or processes or features that we want to bring to our clients into small pieces? And that is not only from a technical perspective, but also, let's say, from a business perspective, from the portfolio level down. Yeah. So you need to give yourself an honest answer, because the way you're answering there, yeah, with your own assessment of how agile you are, also then has implications about what you need to do to get the mindset right. Yeah, mindset sounds so fluffy, yeah, but when we're looking at the deliveries where we have been successful, a substantial part of being successful goes back to having the right mindset established with all the stakeholders that are relevant for such, let's say, a delivery organization. And that goes from the highest levels down to, let's say, the very people who are rolling up their sleeves and implementing some kind of code. And I think a part of it is also having this fail forward fast, yeah, so this embracing change, embracing failure, learn quickly, disseminate the knowledge, yeah. These kind of things, they need to be learned. These mindsets need to be built, and they need to be, let's say, honed every day, again and again and again. So mindset building, next big thing. So, and then SAP, just go back once, Pete. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on one more point here. Agile, there are as many forms of interpreting the Agile manifesto or these concepts as there are deliveries. But in essence, we can say that in the world of packaged software, and SAP I consider a packaged, let's say, software space, more often than not, we do find hybrid agile concepts in place, which means what we're trying to do is we're trying to combine, let's say, the iterative, continuous improvement approach from the agile space with, let's say, a more classical approach when it comes to integration and regression testing, since in the SAP world, it is a very highly integrated space, which merits, let's say, very rigid, very deep integration testing with all the systems around it. Yeah. So what we see most often is that we're combining agile deliveries, iterative ways of working with a, let's say, more classical integration and regression testing phase, instead of going fully agile, which most often is everything around SAP. Yeah? So this is going to be rather a challenge to get right. But as you will see later on, there, I think we can gear ourselves up to cater for the non-SAP full agile world while respecting the needs of a hybrid agile delivery for SAP. So what do we need? Yeah, and I'm sure you can understand that there are many things that are needed. Yeah, but when I try to distill the key success factors at a high level that need to be employed properly, then I think those four might be interesting. So let's assume the mindset is there. You have chosen hybrid agile. Everyone is ready, trained, yeah, and we're eager to get started. So what do you need? Yeah, right at the very beginning. So number one, and I think that's why we're presenting this partnership today, you do need a world-class machine room. So that means you need a platform that allows you to support whichever kind of hybrid agile delivery process you're wanting to employ. Yeah? And you need to be able to support those delivery processes with a proper and sustainably configured tooling. And we believe that Basis Technology products, yeah, Active Control and Testimony, which we learn a bit later, are perfectly suited to give you exactly that world-class machine room where you can operate and transform even the most complex SAP ecosystems that we find on the planet. So world-class machine room is there. Next, you do need a plan on how to make that happen. Yeah. And a lot of, let's say, the initial work goes into figuring out how do you introduce the DevOps concept, yeah, the pipelines, the technological underpinning of the delivery processes step by step on your way towards business agility. And I think this is most often an answer on how do I enable my people to understand how to work with scope? How do I actually bring in the whole landscape management? How do I introduce concepts around code review, functional testing, automation of manual work? All these things need to plan out. So you're basically having a foresight of the potentials that you want to gain step by step in your delivery. And all these things, they mean change for the delivery team. And change means that there is the need for education, the need for training, the need for learning. And for that, there are, let's say, different concepts and different ways of doing Agile. Yeah, for SAFe, for instance, it's called a LACE team. But what we can say is it needs a dedicated team, let's call it the Agile core team, that sole purpose is to make sure that the whole delivery organization is comfortable in delivering in an agile phase. It's making sure that we learn from each other, that we embrace the continuous improvement perspective for every other day when we come to work, that we make a little bit of what we do a bit better. And this is what the Agile core team does. It makes sure that the technological underpinning, the capabilities that you get from your world-class machine room are actually leveraged properly across the whole delivery organization. And it has to do with visibility as well, or in particular with real numbers. Yeah. So when we get started, most often everything will be based on assumptions, on estimates, on how many story points a user story takes. Yeah. How fast the cycle times are. So there are plenty of assumptions that are made. And when you get started, I can assure you that you're gonna be in your first sprint maybe, and the questions will come, well, will we ever make it? Yeah. So do we need to change something? And you need to be a bit patient when you get started to get the first real numbers on how your delivery and especially the DevOps pipeline is working. And I can assure you that when you're leveraging Active Control or the Basis Technology products, you will get all the numbers that you need from the state of your delivery pipeline. You will get them. Yeah, you just need to produce results first. Yeah, so be patient for the first few sprints, then you get the real numbers, and I can assure you get them. And from there, yeah, start to build your own set of metrics, your own set of KPIs that guides you through enabling DevOps concept, and furthermore bringing in, let's say, these types of automation that we're all looking for in order to speed things up. Next slide, please. So a bit more detail, a few things, yeah, that are needed in the beginning. I think there are two things. Yeah. So when you start to mobilize, or when you get ready, yeah, to jot down your roadmap to success towards business agility, you need two resources or two profiles in the version of seasoned pros right in the beginning, which more often than not are forgotten. Yeah. So it's, on the one hand, it's the quality engineer, which is a person, I think, that is very familiar with the concepts of testing, of test automation, of test strategies, and in particular how those test exercises can be leveraged to really make sure that a solution that you're building is fit for purpose. Yeah, DevOps as such, a lot of the automation and a lot of automatically bringing features to production is related to being able to test automatically. And a quality engineer who has done that before and is particularly educated in automation concepts is key to be able to guide the whole setup of the planning, yeah, to design those different phases, to determine how long a specific test phase or a specific step in this pipeline should take. How do you actually write user stories? What needs to go into a definition of done so it can be tested later on? So all these answers come from a seasoned pro in terms of quality engineering. Secondly, and same importance, is the DevOps engineer. Since when you get the whole test automation stuff under control, you will need to be able to properly employ them during your delivery. And there are all kinds of tests. I think you all know that there are review techniques, code reviews, requirement reviews. Then there are like unit testing, single functional testings, integration testing, end-to-end process testing, and they all merit consideration for automation, but you can't do everything at the same time, yeah? And then different set of constraints in terms of toolings or interfaces or landscape setups, yeah, require a very detailed look at how can you employ automation concepts to actually eradicate manual work that might reside in your DevOps pipeline. And that's what a DevOps engineer knows well. And he can basically jot down all the automation potentials that you might have, yeah, and then derive an ordered, hypothesis-driven way on how to employ these automation concepts and really make sure that they are working. So these are the two people that you need right from the start. Second, and I think that sounds a bit counterintuitive, because in the end, your DevOps pipeline is a highly integrated, highly automated thing that you're operating. But when you get started right in the beginning, what we have found is that most often it is very beneficial if you actually start segregated. Yeah, that means there will be the world of user stories, of backlog management, of backlog refinement, of articulating capacity that is needed to realize a piece of work. Yeah, so the whole work management part often resides in Jira or in Micro Focus Octane or in ServiceNow, depending on how you're building that out. Yeah, so keep that not integrated or away from your actual world of solution management, which is, let's say, where Basis Technology sits, yeah, when some of you might have this solution manager piece. So when you're managing through your solution, you're in one shape or form articulating how your processes are flowing on different levels. You're maintaining a business process hierarchy. So all these things are solution management related, and they persist in your system. And in the beginning, those are highly dynamic structures. And if you would integrate them right at the start, so integrating Jira with an interface to Basis Technologies, most likely you will run into maintenance and synchronization overheads that are actually producing waste results. Yeah? So instead, keep them separated, evolve them jointly, and as they reach a certain level of maturity, then look at how you want to integrate, at what level do you want to integrate them, and then do that in an ordered and structured way and try to not produce waste work there. So I think these are the two key concepts in order for you to realize the benefits of automation. So Pete, speaking about these ingredients, I think automation, I've talked about it, and I think David will also talk about it in more detail on where they come from. What you want to gain from it, on the one hand, is speed and agility. So you're eradicating manual work in your delivery pipeline, be it in automatic code reviews, be it in automatic unit testing, be it in automatic dependency check. There is a whole host of, let's say, functionality that you're getting with Basis Technology products. And from what we've seen is, no matter how you actually design your delivery approach, you will find the tools and the functionality that you need in order to customize, let's say, the gain of speed and agility as to your needs. Predictability. This is another piece, yeah, where you need deep insight into how actually all those moving parts in your pipeline, in which state are they, what needs to happen next, yeah, and this kind of visibility more often than not is hard to generate, yeah, but we believe, and we have seen that with Basis Technology setup, we do have the required insight to start forming hypotheses of what will happen if we put a potential feature into production, yeah, so we can actually judge if it's a good idea to do that or not. Stability, and I think in the world of SAP, this is, I think, one of these fundamental drivers why SAP is wanted for. This thing should remain stable and the underpinning stable harbor in a dynamic world of digital processes. So when you're pushing a change towards production, in theory, DevOps says, well, if something goes wrong, you're just pushing a correction through. But as you're young in the world of DevOps and as you're getting started, this might not be something that you can do fast enough, yeah. And here, yeah, I've spoken with quite a few of our clients, yeah, in the banking area or in others. There is a particular piece of functionality which is called back out, yeah, which comes with Basis Technology, which allows you to take back a change with the push of a button, yeah, and that's the next best thing to being able to push a correction. And I'm sure you can understand that simply backing out a change is going to be a lot more faster than trying to run with a correction through your whole pipeline. So that's a piece of feature that merits mentioning because it contributes largely to this stability, the need for stability. And then in the end, yeah, I'm talking about $100 million plus deliveries, large scale deliveries, scaling out these concepts of speeding up things, eradicating manual work, streamlining collaboration, being able to predict behavior of changes into the system, ensuring stability across SAP, but even non-SAP spaces. This needs to be scaled out to large delivery organizations, and that merits, I think, this partnership where we bring the technical underpinning of successful DevOps pipelining together with the understanding on how you can actually roll that out to even the largest of constructs, yeah, in terms of delivery organizations. And if you do that right, yeah, and if you're employing those different, let's say, concepts that I've just mentioned, we have done some research on our own with our clients, and we try to somehow articulate those into two different streams. So one is this part where you say, okay, we're doing some kind of an implementation here, yeah, might be green, brown, smart fields, or who knows, yeah, which one. So it's the implementation piece. And if we're looking at these, yeah, there are many, let's say, benefits that you can realize. Yeah, so in the order of 17 to 13% of shaving off in terms of effort when you think about how do you do track setup, how do you do pilots, how do you do country deployments in complex scenarios, how do you do this dual track synchronization. All these things are pieces that you get from a Basis Technology platform, which can be masters like in no other setup that we believe is out there. Second part is maintain and innovate, or in classical terms, that might have been the run phase, yeah, operating the thing. Also there, speaking about release management or incident resolution with all these kinds of little functionality that we get, but also with, let's say, this radical new approach about testimony, you can actually realize another savings potential in your delivery. Notwithstanding, of course, yeah, when you do this right, when you're getting faster in delivering changes, when you become more agile, catering to the business needs, or in other words, when you have this business agility in place, there is a whole host of other benefits from being able to satisfy the customer's needs faster than others, yeah, which leads to higher binding of the customer to your solution, which maybe increases your market share, which has all kind of, let's say, benefits in addition to these ones here, which come from the mere fact of reaching business agility by implement a digital transformation based on S/4HANA. So to sum it up, I think scaling out the world-class capabilities of Basis Technologies into, let's say, a DevOps-driven hybrid agile delivery on your, let's say, S/4HANA journey. This is something that we believe we can do well together. We can reach the predictability that you need. I think we can have a trusted stability when doing so. We can scale it out, as I said, and we're sure that it's going to be fast and agile. And all these kind of four things, they will be underpinned by these all kinds of automation concepts, or in other words, integrating in the ecosystem and eradicating manual work. I think that would be the part now, David, where I would hand over to you so you can shed some more light on how all these automation concepts would be brought into this exercise.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Torsten, for your very insightful summary of some of the key challenges organizations can face when embarking upon a DevOps for SAP journey. And if we go to the next slide, Pete, we really see that a journey to DevOps, as with many transformations, include the three main areas of process transformation, people, training, culture, mindset transformation, as well as the underlying technology. And whilst Torsten has really spent a lot of the time talking about the process and the people side of things, what I will try to do now is to drill down into the technology side and why for customers that's a challenge typically in the SAP domain. So what we tend to find is that you have a situation where more modern application development has grown up with a lot of the open source tools or capabilities you see on the left-hand side of the screen here. The likes of Jenkins, Selenium, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc., as tools that are natively able to handle things like distributed development, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous delivery, etc. SAP, on the other hand, as an ecosystem, as a technology that has been around for many years, going from mainframe to client server, etc., has historically really come about more with the waterfall-based approaches, and we want to kind of highlight today some of the key ways in which customers are breaking that perception down. But let's have a quick look at some of the key reasons why SAP is historically or even currently harder to bring DevOps to life in. The first is SAP has its own programming language for all of those who have existing custom solutions or who are continuing to build out custom solutions in the future in-app or in the core. The shared nature of the development system and the inability to check out code and to manage feature branches and this sort of thing means that all developers are effectively competing for and sharing a single source control or version control development system. The deployment of change uses the proprietary approach of transports, which has some limitations or constraints. It has some advantages as well in terms of really being able to know what what changes are contained, and having the granularity to deploy things at that level. All of this is kind of stored and managed in a database. Even all of the workbench, all of the custom code is stored inside that database. And going back to Torsten's comment, from a packaged software standpoint, configuration is as important as custom code development. So traditionally or historically, with the out-of-the-box tools, it has been difficult for customers, for developers to really leverage or to try and emulate the automatic build, test, deployment that's possible or widely used on the cloud native side or more modern application development side. Historically, it has been difficult to coordinate or orchestrate change across applications, and especially outside of the SAP ecosystem. And it's also relatively opaque and difficult to kind of see what is in progress and what is being worked on by others. So the real, if we can move, the real way in which customers work with Basis Technologies in helping them transform the way they work with SAP is in the following three areas. The first is really in the core and in the heart of change and release automation. So here we are able to work with customers on bringing more flexibility or agility into how they deploy change, and they build the confidence in order to be able to do that through automation and through the management and the reduction of risk. So really looking to understand and build the relationships. How does one change relate to another? Do they need to be, are they dependent? Do we need to worry about the sequencing of these changes? How do we move, how do we shift left more of the traditional development activity? How do we automate more within that pipeline so that defects are identified and eliminated or addressed earlier within the process? How do we manage change in a flexible way so that even what was originally planned as a kind of a potential release can be broken apart and quickly assessed to understand the impact of moving a subset of that release or delaying a portion of that release if it's not yet ready, if it's not yet signed off, including the capabilities like the ability to back out if, despite all of this, the customer gets to the point where a change has produced an unexpected result and they want to quickly revert to the previous state. The second way in which we're working with customers is in the area of robotic test automation. Very deliberate choice of words here. So obviously there are many options out there for traditional regression test automation, but they primarily are solution or technology agnostic, and they tend to work via the user interface. We approach this, again, because we are focused on the SAP domain, we approach this from outside, so inside out instead of outside in. And we look to observe during, let's say, a day in the life of a production system, all of the interactions which are happening. And that includes all of the user interaction, not just a subset, not just a kind of a single end-to-end scenario. It includes all of the inbound and outbound interface traffic, and it includes all of the batch processing which is happening. We capture all of that as part of a recording, and at the beginning of that recording, the customer would take a snapshot of their production system. In this day and age with elastic infrastructure, they would spin up that snapshot into a temporary system, and we are then able, after the customer has applied their prospective release candidate, their upgrade, their enhancement pack, whatever it is, we're able to perform a full playback of that recording and highlight to the customer simply where any differences are observed. And all of this without any upfront investment in test script identification, test script development, ongoing test script maintenance, and equally with the provision of the snapshot, no effort to identify or provision test data. And with that, we are able to achieve coverage levels with our customers of over 80+% on the very first execution, which would normally take months, if not years. Well, to be honest, normally it would take a customer months or years to get to a 20 to 30% coverage rate through traditional automation. Lastly, we work with our customers in enabling a kind of a whole end-to-end pipeline around DevOps. So this includes the integration when you're ready with your requirements management, your backlog tooling such as Jira, or your ITSM tooling such as the likes of ServiceNow or Remedy or Cherwell or what have you. And equally, the orchestration capability to manage change across the SAP estate, but also beyond the SAP estate to manage change with the front-end systems, those systems that are not handled by SAP, not handled using transports as a deployment mechanism, so connecting into the likes of Jenkins, GitLab, etc., as a way of really making sure SAP is not viewed any longer as a separate silo within a development organization, within a company, and really bringing that DevOps integration to life within the SAP world as well. And below that, you see a few of the kind of use cases that we typically are helping customers with, helping them mature on their Agile DevOps journey, helping them as they transition to the cloud, helping their transformation to things like S4HANA, as well as some of the more traditional. They want to become more efficient, they want to automate more and drive out cost from their process. They want to improve their compliance and auditability. And in general, they want to try to reduce and eliminate existing errors or issues that are happening within their change process. So we have, and Pete mentioned this at the beginning, the only complete DevOps and test automation platform specifically engineered for SAP. Two main products in that platform are Active Control for the change and release automation, and Testimony for the regression testing, the robotic test automation as talked. And when you combine the two together, you get even more potential value, because what we can do is we can connect the dots between differences that are identified as part of the testimony recording and playback, and trace those back to the potential underlying transports and associated objects that are part of the latest release candidate, for example. Now, just fleshing that out a little bit more on the next slide, And if we think back to that first one that I shared around the chasm that exists today, one way of thinking about it is active control is allowing the customers we work with to build a bridge between the SAP portion of their landscape with the rest of their architecture, the rest of their applications, both in terms of coordinating and orchestrating change with the likes of Jenkins and GitLab, but also using the same enterprise-wide tools for backlog management across all of the various applications. So not using specific tools that traditionally would have been used for SAP requirements management, for example, in isolation. We are able to bring forward and shift left through automation, things like the unit testing, automated unit testing, code inspection, with standard tools like ABAP Test Cockpit and others, such as the Anapsys platform, formerly Virtual Forge. We're even able, again, to connect into and trigger for those customers that are using traditional regression test automation, trigger testing in some of those tools. And as highlighted, we're doing that with customers that are working on-prem, that have a virtual private cloud, or that are even already migrating towards or running on the hyperscalers such as the AWS, Google, or Azure platforms. In terms of potential benefits, our customers tend to see benefits across cost reduction through automation, which is driving out rework, which kind of brings us into the second one here in terms of efficiency, elimination of issues they typically run into, be it missing transports, overtakes, dependencies, etc. They're able, with the automation and with the risk reduction, the confidence that brings, they're able to move change significantly faster within their SAP estate, and doing all of this with a lower level of risk, including the elimination of unplanned downtime through reduction in errors, but also through things like backout. To kind of drill into some specific examples, we have three of our customer examples here. IPG, which is a global media company, obviously a very dynamic market that's being heavily disrupted by digital. SAP is a common component across a number of their different agencies and companies, and they needed to be able to respond with more agility. They chose Active Control to help them adopt DevOps in the SAP space. They started small, like Torsten was suggesting, and then gradually rolled that out until they were fully using that. They were able to eliminate over 99% of the transport errors that they had previously been seeing, and they were able to go from biannual releases to releases every week into their SAP production system. Vistaprint, another example that was having a business-wide agile transformation, not just targeted on the IT space, was really looking to regain some of the agility that they had lost as they scaled up to become an over $1 billion company. And obviously the SAP systems within their estate were central to their manufacturing and ensuring that the capacity, the inventories, etc., were available to their front end, to their website. Again, here, Active Control was able to help them adopt a fully agile approach, shifting left a lot of the things that had previously been done manually within the process, and they've even been able to achieve daily releases into production. And lastly, to talk a little bit more about the orchestration potential, Ericsson, that was undertaking a an IT-wide adoption of DevOps, found the kind of SAP silo problem when it came to change orchestration, and together with Active Control through integration with GitLab, they were able to incorporate SAP change into that pipeline alongside 15 other non-SAP enterprise applications. So I think with that, Pete, I will hand back over to you for summary and questions.
All right, well, thank you very much to both David and Torsten. Let's just wrap things up very quickly here then. We're a little bit over time, but just want to recap this slide, because obviously we're here today talking about Basis Technologies and Accenture, and how respectively our organizations can work together to help clients who are running SAP. And I think we've covered various areas today of how a DevOps approach managed in the right way based on the experience with clients in the market can help you bring the speed and agility that you need. Very importantly, as Torsten has said, with the predictability and stability that is really non-negotiable within SAP systems. And we certainly believe, and it's our experience with our clients, as David has mentioned, that you can actually in fact achieve potentially higher quality with a faster release cadence, with the right tools and with the right approach that helps you to scale effectively across your teams. And the combination of Accenture's expertise around the domain of SAP and Agile and DevOps and Basis Technologies, automation skills and experience around DevOps for SAP over the past few years really is a winning combination for enabling transformation and helping to increase business agility, the speed of innovation, and as I've mentioned, really importantly, to mitigate risk and eliminate risk really while you're doing that through the process. So that's Accenture and Basis Technologies. Just to finally wrap up today, if my mouse will work, a quick summary of what we've covered. Obviously, a very big topic. You know, DevOps for SAP is not something we're going to be able to cover in any detail in an hour, and maybe even not in a day to the level we need to really get started. But we've touched on a lot of important points. We've talked about how business agility is so important these days, and I'm sure that's something that many people can recognize. We were talking to a number of clients yesterday who all agreed on this idea that from an IT perspective, they're all being asked to move faster and respond more quickly than ever by the business. And DevOps in SAP or outside is one of the ways that can help us do this. And we're certainly seeing that success widely outside of SAP and more in the world of packaged applications like SAP. But if you're going to do that, as with anywhere else, you need the right tools. In SAP's case, you need SAP specific tools, and that's what we at Basis Technologies are here to help you with. And as we've seen, this is not a dream. SAP users are adopting DevOps and are seeing success with it today in different ways, at different scales, in different types of organization. And of course, that's something you need to consider for your business if you want to look at this and how to do that. But certainly Accenture and Basis Technologies are working together to help many different companies to achieve that change and to work more effectively within the domain of SAP and supporting their business through that. So it just remains for me to say that if you'd like any more information, as I promised at the start, there's some contact details here on the screen for both Basis and for both David and Torsten, and the respective websites of our companies where you can find a bit more information. Do please get in touch if you're interested to discuss further. Thank you to everybody who's joined us on today's webinar. We are very tight for time. We run a little bit long today, but I'm just going to pick a couple of questions just off the top of the list to round things off up to the hour. And then for everybody else, if I don't get to your question today, my apologies. We'll certainly try to follow up with you offline, particularly for the couple of audience members who've submitted quite a lot of different questions and things to talk about. So maybe Torsten, just a quick one for you to start with. Are a lot of, I mean, I think you touched on this already, but just to clarify, how many of the organizations you work with at Accenture are looking at DevOps today, and particularly in SAP? Is it becoming very widespread from your point of view?
So how many? So I mean, I cannot give you a specific number. However, yeah, what I do see is that most of the customers that we're working with are employing hybrid agile delivery approaches. And at a certain point, yeah, they're all looking to eradicate manual work in an ordered fashion during their delivery. And they're all looking to employ, let's say, the best possible tooling to do so. Yeah. In addition, they also are all looking to integrate with the non-SAP world. So if you would say that this is a DevOps mindset applied, yeah, or DevOps concepts in action, then I think I could say that almost all customers are trying to achieve DevOps concepts, eradication of manual work in an ordered fashion, yeah, in their deliveries today. Yeah, so I think it's rather a pervasive wish or need that our customers are looking forward to implement. Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. So David, maybe just something for you, just to try and join up a couple of different questions here. We've had some questions around the various different integrations that Active Control offers, and particularly asking around Azure DevOps as one option. So without going through the whole gamut of the individual integrations, can you just speak to us a bit about what's available today and the approach that we take with new integrations or things that aren't there from day one?
Yeah, so I saw the Azure DevOps question. We have customers already integrating with Microsoft's Team Foundation Server, and Azure DevOps has a very similar kind of approach, let's say. So I think it would be very easy for us to incorporate that. We're actually, in January, we're launching a new integration framework based on Node-RED, which will make further integrations significantly easier. And yeah, for us, creating this integrated tool chain is one of the key goals, one of the key benefits of DevOps, and really opening up SAP from being a silo to something that can communicate with whatever a customer is using within their architecture today.
Okay, great, thanks. So just the final thing, we're almost up to the hour. The final thing I want to mention, we've had a couple of questions and comments around ABAP Git, the use of ABAP Git as a tool or Git as a technology around SAP. And that's certainly something that we're looking at and discussing with a number of our clients, because it's quite an integral technology to a DevOps approach, quite commonly outside of SAP. We've got a couple of webinars and some blogs around that that explain where we've got to with those investigations so far, and as I say, it's certainly something we're actively discussing with our user base. So if you'd like to know more about that or discuss it further, do please get in touch. It's an interesting technology, it's an early technology, there are some limitations, and certainly we're looking at how the combination of a tool like Active Control could combine with something like ABAP Git to try and provide a more complete picture and still give you some benefits of that distributed development approach. But as I say, a couple of webinars also on the Basis Technologies website about that if you're interested. In the meantime, again, thank you to our presenters today, David and Torsten. Thank you to everybody who joined us. If you are interested to learn more from either of the guys or the respective companies, the details are on the screen there. We'd encourage you to get in touch, and we hope to see you on another Basis Technologies webinar soon. Thanks and goodbye, everyone.
Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Pete. Thanks, everyone.